Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It's exciting time. It's third hour on Friday. It's time for What Just Happened. As we look back at the insanity of the week, three great returning champions have returned to rule what just happened. It's first Carolina Hidalgo coming to us, I think, from LA or the West Coast, comedian, podcaster, No Dogs in Space on the Last Podcast Network. How are you, Carolina?
I'm doing all right. It's 9 a.m., but I'm ready to talk about these protests.
All right.
She's happening right outside my house. Yes.
Thank you for being awake. Wake up early for this. Nida Khan, who never sleeps, is here. Journalist, radio producer, HuffPost. She's written for Essence, CNN, and more. Hey, Nida, how are you?
Hi, how you doing? I think that's actually very accurate. I don't sleep, and then when I do, I sleep with one eye open. Absolutely.
Wow, girl. And also here, fully alert, it is Keith Price, comedian, actor, podcast, radio talk show host, and everything. Keith, good to see you, my friend.
It's fabulous to see you too, Habibi. You don't think I forgot.
That's right. I forgot. He's back. All right. We're going to get to the protest. I promise you. I don't know if they're keeping you up, Carolina, if it's good or bad. But let's talk about Donald Trump's New York criminal trial, because this is a guy who doesn't have a problem sleeping. Say what you want about him, but he can fall asleep where I can't. I take sleep medicine. He can fall asleep in his own trial, and he did it 3 times. Now, he only fell asleep this week on Monday that we know of, but we know he closes his eyes a lot, so he could be napping. So, Nitha, you were saying you don't sleep much, but with one eye open. What is your take on Trump falling asleep 3 times out of the first 5 days, and maybe cat napping a little or Trump napping other days? We're just not sure right now.
Honestly, I'm not surprised, because this is probably the most he's had to concentrate ever in his entire life. And you could see it because he just wants to get out of there. He's so antsy. That's why he's saying, I want to be on the, campaign trail. I want to be out there speaking to people. So it's probably driving him insane. This might be the best punishment, or it might even be the only punishment he gets. So it's interesting to see that. Though in all fairness, court can be boring, as you know, Dean, as a former attorney, current attorney. Are you still practicing?
No, I don't practice law, but I was a trial lawyer. But I think I'd be alert if I was a defendant, though.
Right.
They're all talking about me. I'm facing 34 felonies. Yeah, it could be boring if you're a juror or if you're a court bailiff or something like that. When you're a lawyer, you're doing your job. If you're the defendant. But it's kind of interesting to see how this plays out and how the media. Carolina, don't you think there's, like, putting all jokes aside, you can joke, of course, but I'm saying that the guy fell asleep 3 times in 5 days. He didn't fall asleep when he was president. So something's happened between 2020 and 2024 where he can't stay alert when they're all talking about him and he's facing 34 felonies. And I really wonder if there's a health issue that the corporate media, like, if Biden fell asleep once, nonstop, Biden's asleep, what happened to America? Like 25th Amendment. He falls asleep 3 times and they're like, big deal. It's just Trump. That's what Trump does.
I truly actually believe I don't know if it's for sure, but it does seem very likely that whole, what people had that conspiracy about how they're drugging him so he doesn't get more disruptive and make it worse or anything, or just run around screaming in people's faces. Like, that's not a bad idea of a thought of, like, the lawyers just slipping like a ton of Valium in his coffee or something in the morning. And this is why you're seeing him nodding off and drooling. And this is that's what they have to do. They have to tranquilize the beast or something. I would say maybe it's not the worst idea out there, is what I'm saying.
I wish they would do it by, like, blowgun. Like, he starts talking, it's like, and he goes, and then he just falls asleep and he's like, okay, I've had enough. Keith, so what's your take on America's biggest white supremacist napping during his court cases? It's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, he is of a certain age where nodding off in the middle of the day isn't a bad choice. Right. But for me, the whole idea that when I keep looking at this particular trial, and then I think about the stuff that was happening yesterday with the Supreme Court, and then the stuff that's happening in Georgia and everything, I just realized how much money this idiotic man is costing this country for these trials that are happening every day, all because he does not want to accept the fact that he lost an election. I mean, that's like where all of this stuff is starting from. And then all of the criminal activity upon which he was committing while he was in office, he doesn't want that to be seen either. So we're spending all of this money to help him keep his secrets. And I'm still laughing yesterday at the Supreme Court with their moments when they were like, so if he planned a coup and did this assassination, would that be under the purview? And it's like the idea that we're even having to ask the question that if we have a president that walks in already with criminal intent and we give him access to everything and he decides to be a criminal while he's inside, that we're going to have to give him immunity or not. Like, why is that even a question? Like, there's no sense of honor at all in this country anymore. And that man, when he sat in that office for 4 years, has managed to undo 200 and something years of actual history by being an asshole. And being a criminal. And so now we are, as a country, are paying for that. And the history of this country now is hinging on these 5 or 6 judges that are still trying to find a way to dance around every fucking thing. I'm like, I'm just exhausted. So
Keith Price is exhausted, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm falling asleep right next to him in court.
Yeah.
Right next to him.
No, don't fall asleep. There's only 3 of you on the panel. I need all 3 of you. So Nita, look, to Keith's point, we all know Trump's he's a criminal. He probably will be a convicted felon. If he wins, shouldn't he just be allowed to crime all he wants at this point? If America wants a criminal, give them the criminal. Let him just be a criminal, because I've had it. I'm tired of saying, where's the accountability? When I listened to the Supreme Court yesterday, not even a sense from the right-wing Supreme Court justice, the guy attempted a coup. Not even a sense of that. Like, well, we don't want to tie the hands of the next president.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let Trump win, give him immunity, let him just put all of them in jail at this point. I don't even care. I mean, I do care, but I'm saying, like, if this is a game we're playing, it's making it harder and harder to care about certain things. You're like, this is so in our face.
Mm-hmm.
It is in our face, and it's nonstop. And honestly, first, let me just say, to Keith's point about the Supreme Court, it was I think Justice Sotomayor who was saying, if he assassinates somebody, is that within the scope of his duties or something like that, something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. And the attorneys were like, yeah, it is, no big deal. So essentially saying that he will be a dictator. He'll be able to do whatever he wants, give him free range to do whatever. Same thing as we're seeing with Netanyahu. I know we're not going there yet, but and many other people around the world, many other so-called leaders as well. And Trump has always wanted to be the wannabe dictator. And what really troubled me was the fact that the Supreme Court, they're trying to narrow the scope. So basically, most likely this is not going to happen before the election. And that's why I said earlier that at the end of the day, this might be the most we're going to see him held accountable. Mm-hmm. And as a journalist, what bothers me is the 24/7 coverage we're giving this. And I know I've said this on your show before, Dean, but it's the nonstop. And that's what he thrives on that. He did that in the 2016 election, the endless free airtime. And it's just in your face when there's so many other issues going on, both within this country and around the world. I mean, an immense amount of news happening. And this is all.
So, Carolina, to that point, if the worst punishment Trump gets for attempting a coup might be the equivalent of detention in high school. Like, you have to sit in a room for 8 hours and get bored. And that's it. It's 6 weeks of that. Like, really? For a coup? Yeah. That's a long time. It's like, maybe you'll get to 5 if the trial goes early. But that really could be the only punishment. He could be convicted and still not get jail time here. Mm-hmm. So the lesson to America is attempt a coup. You're going to get after school detention from 3 o'clock to 6. That's it.
Well, that's the sad part about this, because this whole thing is about him, started by him, because of him. I mean, the Supreme Court, by the way, as we all know, 3 of them appointed during his presidency. Yep. A third of them are sitting there talking about this same person. That's absolutely insane. And not just that, of course, the delaying, as you guys were talking about before, where this should have really been taken care of last month. Right, as we all know, it really, with the delayment, it's insane. But not just that, but the fact that all these the Supreme Court or the other justices are pretty much trying to figure out laws that will just protect one person, instead of protecting the people. And that is the thing that I think everyone has backwards, that no one is realizing. How this is such a backwards world right now.
Exactly.
That's the thing that drives me crazy.
So, Keith, do you think, though, that the attorneys for the DOJ should have said to Justice Kavanaugh or Gorsuch, like when they're talking about Trump, like, I just want to bring up that the person who gave you your job, that's who we're talking about. The guy who appointed you. Okay.
Right.
That's the guy we're talking about right now.
Well, I mean, and the way that they were dancing around, the way they were going to ask questions, and the way that they were trying to find a way to participate in the concept, knowing that they're going to wind up voting to make this thing drama go on. And the fact of the matter is, the longer that they keep this drama going on, and we go back to the fact that we have still yet to this day, we still have Louis DeJoy messing with the postal system. We still have not cleared up all of these issues that we were having with voting issues in terms of polling places and polling places being removed and not being able to have people bring you water when you're standing in line. And all of that nonsense has yet to be discussed, has yet to be fixed. And so now if we drag this freaking foolishness to allow this fool to run for president, and we still have all these things undone, do you not think that the fix will be in? Because, of course, as soon as they can figure out a way to really F up the voting process, this all is going to go away come 2025. And then we're going to be living under the regime of a fucking weirdo. And I don't understand how it has gone on this long. I just don't. It's like this is just the failure of America to check white people. Because if this guy had, orange seems to be not the new black. It sure isn't anymore. You know what I'm saying? But like again, if he had been Obama or had it been any, Hillary Clinton, had any of this gone on to like a third of what we're seeing right now, if they committed like even a 75th of what this guy has done, they would have been buried underneath the jail. And the mere fact that we're still parading around letting these white men have this, trying to figure out a way to keep this guy out of jail, like this guy should be in jail. And I don't understand how we continue as a country to let this guy stand there and do this.
It's the system and it's screwed up. And I'm chatting with Carolina Hidalgo, Nida Khan, and Keith Price. It is outrageous, but at the same time, let's remember, I keep trying to remind people that there's 6 Republican justices on the Supreme Court. Donald Trump is the leader of their party. They are defending the leader of their political party. If you think this court is any longer a court and not an arm of the GOP, you're kidding yourself. We've never seen
exactly.
A Quinnipiac poll a few months ago showed almost 75% of Americans now think the Supreme Court makes decisions based on politics. They don't mean the 3 Democrats, the 6 Republicans. Only 20% believe it's based on the law now. So it's just an institute. It's just an arm of the GOP. And I really think, Nitha, Democrats have to make winning the court the same way we talk about winning the House and the Senate and the White House. And winning the court would be reforming the court. You got to expand it, reform it. Any other way we can't even get Justice Thomas to accuse himself from cases on January 6th. We can't.
Thank you.
So there's nothing. It's lawless. It's a lawless court. Charge the court. We need January 6th the court. Sorry, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I was just going to say that because it's so frustrating because so many Democratic leaders are even afraid to go there. Even after all of this, everything that you said, Keith, everything that you said, Dean, even after all of this and the in-your-face bias and corruption of the courts, they are still afraid to say, we need to expand the court. We need to do something. A lot of them don't even campaign on it when they're running for election. And I'm like, how is this possible? Meanwhile, on the flip side, Republicans have done this for decades. I mean, literally decades. And it's the number one reason why so many, or I should say one of the main reasons why so many Republicans in the Never Trumper and people that claim to be against Trump still fell in line because they knew the bigger picture. They wanted the court. They wanted even federal judges, which is what Trump did. And Mitch McConnell in 2017 said that from a center-right perspective, that this is the most conservative everything that he's ever seen. And I'm paraphrasing again and screwing up the quote, but that's essentially what he said in 2017 after Trump was in office. And he helped him do all of this stuff along the way, and many other people have. And that's what they want to do yet again in this election and going forward.
Amen.
I agree. So let's shift gears and talk about the Trump trial in New York that's going on, and not the legal nuance, but yesterday, in case people don't know, the testimony began by the state a couple of days ago, but it continued yesterday. The former head of the National Enquirer, the publisher, David Pecker, which is just the perfect child, the perfect name, the Beavis and Butthead name perfectly for this case, is it? But he testified yesterday, Pecker, he did catch and kill operations where they would buy bad stories and silence them of not just Trump, but a bunch of celebrities. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tiger Woods, Mark Wahlberg. I want to know what he catched and killed for Mark Wahlberg. I want to know, like, that's, I'm really intrigued about. Like, what did Marky Mark do? Like, what, and it doesn't mean they had an affair. It's what I've learned, anything negative, they hear about, someone's going to come out and say, like, he was a jerk at me at McDonald's when I worked at McDonald's. They go, oh, okay, go see the person. Here's $50,000. We buy the rights exclusively. And then they never publish it. So it's, I'm not suggesting, in Schwarzenegger's case, we know he had an affair, but maybe that's what they did for a while. There's a lot of there. But what a get out of jail. If you got enough money, you could be a jerk as a celebrity to everyone and just have the Enquirer pay people off. So Carolina, any sense what it could have been? And is there anything you've done in your life that you feel like you would want the Enquirer to pay someone off so they can't say it?
No, because I already put it on MySpace and it's been deleted. And it's not, it's forever.
So it's there?
all my really fun, edgy jokes. No, I had nothing except for outfits and T-shirts that said Green Day rules on it. But you know what? I'm not embarrassed. Okay.
And they do rule. I think they still rule.
Yeah,
I think Billy Joel Armstrong is pretty cool.
They're still doing a good job. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter that I've outgrown them. I still like them. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking? Oh yeah, Trump and the stories. I mean, obviously, when you mentioned all those guys, Tiger Woods and all that, yeah, it's all affairs. It probably is all affairs down the board. Who knows at this point? At this point, nothing surprises me. Remember, I've been telling you this every time I go on Dean Obeidallah show. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Well, you know what I found hilarious though is the reason that they have this particular portion of the trial about Stormy Daniels and the $130,000 and how it had to go through Michael Cohen and blah, blah, blah. The reason that they had to do it is because Trump did not pay for the 2 previous stories that he had them do. Yeah. And it's like, again, don't tell me he's a good business person. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, you got these people looking out to keep out your secrets. You need to pay them. He doesn't even pay them. So Trump
stiff David Pecker.
And that's the reason why David,
it's kind of weird.
That's why David Pecker is sitting right up there singing like a canary, honey. He is
the weirdest thing is Trump leaves the courthouse yesterday and goes, I was so glad I was here. This was a bombshell. This case should be over. And everyone's like, what are you talking? Did we miss something? No, Trump's mind, which is just, if you open it up, which we can't do the autopsy, but if you could now, it would be like just a mouth. It's like Diet Cokes and McDonald's.
I'm telling you.
And small animals. And I don't know what's going on in there, but I guess Trump's view is that, well, if Pecker did hush money payments for everyone else, for other people, then it can't be a crime what he did. But to remind everyone, Donald Trump's not charged with hush money. He's charged with falsifying business records. If Arnold Schwarzenegger had falsified business records involved in hush money, he would be charged with falsified business records. It's a corporation. I could pay hush money. I never have. There are people I would like to pay just to say they had a relationship with me. Because there are a few people. I'm like, I'm not sure. Is there someone who will make you look cooler if you can get them to say, like, yeah, I dated Nida Khan, or anything would help you? Like, to me, it's probably Kim Kardashian, because she helped Pete Davidson's career move to the next level. Pete was funny, but they dated. Boom. If I had like a week of hanging out with the Kardashians, I think it could help my career.
Well, it could help your career, but I would never speak to you again. So there.
Well, you know, even though it was a career move, you know, I only did it for the career. Like Taylor Swift.
So you're telling me now.
If I can get Taylor Swift to say, I had a coffee date with Dean a few years ago. I didn't bring it up until now for whatever reason. That would help my career. I'd have Swifties at all my comedy shows.
You know, she has to write a song about it. That's the only way it's going to work.
You know how much rhymes with Dean? Dean's the easiest word to rhyme with. Green, clean, jelly bean. I could write the song for Taylor Swift and go sing the Dean song. It's like the Dean song. That's me.
I thought it was really funny that going back to Trump, that he gave a birthday shout out to Melania. But my question is, where is
she?
Nowhere to be found. Exactly. And the fact that nobody from his family has come to support him, that speaks volumes.
No, because they don't want to get caught up in that storm of whatever it is he's farting over there. They're letting. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
We've heard that there might be some flatulence. He was Don Snorleone, and then the Don Farter. I heard that one was online.
They're not. They don't want to get too close to that fire, honey.
All right, so let's shift gears and talk about something that Carolina was dying to talk about from the
Oh,
beginning.
yeah.
Me too. Yes.
The protests. We'll talk about the protests. Perhaps it's kind of Carolina. What's going on? Are the protesters near you? Do you live near one of the colleges or something?
No, I don't live too close or anything, but I have been watching it all in real time on the news, where in the news, you know, they're trying to be like, oh, look, it seems like there's a lot of activity here. Some people are running, and it's just people there, just the being there. So I mean, that's what you see in the beginning at the very least. Yeah, the protesting has been insane. Everyone around here has been talking about like, but how did we get here? But why? But what was the thing that was so bad about it? Like, I even looked up the articles that you sent, Dean, about the protests, because I was just wondering myself, like this valedictorian who's talking about how her speech was canceled for the commencement, and but she was never given any details as to why, and also never heard herself any safety concerns, never had any threats against herself or USC. So the reasons are very dubious, and that's just the thing that can, like, just, I guess, annoys me the most out of everything.
Right. If people don't know, she was chosen to be valedictorian. She had a remarkable GPA, but out of a bunch of students who applied, had really high GPAs, and she got appointed. And she does a lot of community service work, but she is Muslim. She wears a hijab, and she had not posted that much about the Middle East, but there was a link on her Instagram to someone else's website. And on that website, someone there advocated both a 2-state and a 1-state. So by just someone on that website that she didn't even write, have anything to do with, but she linked to it years ago, before October 7th, about that, the pro-Israel student group was outraged that she was picked. Instead of having a discussion about what her views are or what her speech was going to be about, they're like, okay, you just can't speak. And because you're a threat to the narrative that we don't want out there. That was the real threat. It was, but now USC's canceled. So then they canceled the other speakers. Now they canceled everything. Like last night, they're like, okay, we're not, no one's graduating. I hope you're happy.
Exactly.
People are canceling pie eating contests this weekend. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I got an email from our local radio station saying, hey, we're not doing this raffle this weekend, just because everyone's just kind of like almost like hunkering down in a very strange way.
Isn't that strange?
It feels very reactionary to something that I don't know why this was blown up so much, and why we had to have Mike Johnson in Columbia University as well. Like,
what was that?
I feel like we're all being used as pawns towards this ridiculous thing.
We
called
are
politics.
And Governor Hochul, who had gone and met with the students already and is actually very pro-Israel, was saying, Johnson, don't come here, that you're just trying to politicize and polarize the students when things were getting a little better. So he goes there and he just got drowned out by various chants, like, we can't hear you and stuff. And he's like, enjoy your First Amendment. That's what he said to them.
Mike, you suck was my favorite one. They actually have that quoted under the Reuters photo.
I would have chanted, stand up, because he's so small. Just to taunt him.
But you know, Dean, like, obviously we know why Johnson is going there, right? For his politics, playing to the right. But it's also, and I know I caused trouble the last time I was on with Maysoon and we were discussing this, but we have to also call out Dems. You know, Hochul didn't go to Columbia when those students were attacked by, I think it was skunk spray, and nothing was done until reporters finally looked into it. Elected officials went there and stood with those students then. And the fact, I just want to say that I feel like a very proud auntie in this moment. I am so proud of these kids that are predominantly, majority of them, peacefully assembling and peacefully protesting. And instead they're being met with state-sanctioned violence. The way we see these vicious arrests in Texas, in Emory, all around the country, they're responding with such brute force, and they're arresting these students, arresting even professors who are just trying to protect their students, and in many cases not even doing anything, and taking them away and trying to silence them. And for a long time, people like you and I know, people that have talked about Palestine or even advocated for Palestinian rights or even criticize Israel, have known that there are consequences where you may lose opportunities, you may lose jobs, you may be, you know, different threats might happen, different things might happen. And I know I've dealt with that in my career, entire career. And I'm sure you've dealt with certain things too. And we're finally seeing a moment where that fear is dwindling away, and more people are being empowered to speak out because they cannot stand to watch the mass murder of innocent civilians, the majority of whom are children children and women and even innocent men that are being killed. You know, we always say women and children. I mean, and as so many organizations and nonprofits around the world have said, it is a war on children. I mean, I can't, at some point every day, I look at one of these videos and shed a tear. I mean, it is horrific. And, you know, these kids, they don't have to rely on, I shouldn't even say kids, but I should say amazing, brilliant young people don't have to rely on traditional news outlets to get their news, and they're getting videos and reports from the ground, and they're seeing this in real time. And this is why they feel it's so important for them to speak out and say something, and to hold their institutions where they're going to school accountable to say, you need to divest from this, you need to stop this. And I just want to give them props and kudos. And unfortunately, you have other people on the outside that have tried to tarnish them. And, you know, there's even reports of people infiltrating some of the protesters and then saying, you know,
all the time.
things and anti-Semitic things. And that's always happened in even civil rights movements. You've seen throughout history, and you're seeing the same dynamic repeat. And what also happened in the civil rights movement is when you see that brute force from police, from state sanctioned, you know, what happens that the protesters end up getting even more sympathy, and they grow even bigger, and they get even louder. And that's what we're watching right now. And you're seeing, I think it's 40 colleges now where there's protests happening.
Wow. Keith, what about, we also see people on the right who demonize Black Lives Matter, who are the ones demonizing the pro-Palestinian protests a lot, like Tom Cotton, the senator, literally wrote an op-ed in 2020 sending the military when it came to the Black Lives Matter protests and calling them thugs and criminals. And then just last week saying that, you know, if these protesters are getting in your way, maybe you have to take matters into your own hand type of thing. And Mike Johnson was there saying he's going to get he thinks Biden should send the National Guard in. Meanwhile, the students are like camping peacefully in an area on campus. You can send a National Guard to do what? I'm not exactly sure. To hang out with them, to sing with them, to play hacky sack. I'm not quite sure. But so, Keith, what is your take on all this?
Now, here's the thing. Now, I come from, to give away my age, since I just recently had a birthday. Hilaire.
Tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
But I went to the University of Texas at Austin in the 80s.
Oh.
When the big protests that we had on campus during that time, and I say we meaning the collective space, was they had a shanty that was built on the West Mall that was there to represent what was happening, because we were trying to get the university to divest from South Africa at the time. And so that was met with, you know, we had people that would try to, that set it on fire. We had people that, you know, tore it down. It was, you know, the white conservative kids that were like, why is this thing there? And, you know, having to fight all of that, because this was Texas in the 80s. And so to see what I'm seeing now happening on UT's campus, I find it even more frightening. And then I'm also a little bit kind of, I almost say envious, because we did not have that level of attention that was brought to it, but we also got a lot of the anger and hate that came around from the campus because of it. And I say we, because it wasn't like I was out there in the protest, because I was like trying to hide in the closet and not be seen. So, but when I was walking past the shanty all the time, and I had friends that were part of that thing with the Black Student Union that we had, that it became such an issue. So to see that hasn't changed in over 30 something years, almost 40 years, to see that they're still having to fight to be heard or fight to be seen, and being now met with even more aggressiveness. But that to me is the climate of Texas anyway. Like, I will never go back to Texas if I'm glad that my parents have passed away, because I have no real reason to go back. So I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, my sister, if she wants to see me, she comes to New York. If my nieces and nephews want to see me, they come to New York. I'm not going to Texas, because I will get killed in Texas. And seeing what I'm seeing right now, I worry that that's going to go too far. And I'm worrying about what's going to happen when there's another Black Lives Matter type protest that's going to have to happen, because, you know, we still haven't dealt with any of that either. So, you know, it's sort of like, so when that happens, it's like, how aggressive is it going to get in places like Texas? But, you know, kudos to the students for getting out there and making themselves be known. I feel like, you know, that, like, I do feel like a proud uncle to watch them, especially looking back at UT, like, all right, give them hell, kids. Give them hell.
And just so people know, in Texas, Governor Abbott signed a law in 2019 to protect free speech on college campuses.
Yes, he did.
By guaranteeing anyone in these private common areas, they can speak and hang out as long as they're not breaking the law. No violence or anything like that. But that's only if he agreed with the message. because he was trying to
Exactly.
protect right-wing people. So these people on the right hate Black Lives Matter. They hate pro-Palestinian protests, but they love the January 6 people. Those people are patriots and hostages. And Trump took it even further. Yesterday, he downplayed the 2017 Charlottesville protest by calling it, quote, a little peanut compared to the pro-Palestinian protests. Meanwhile, that little peanut resulted in Heather Heyer being killed and numerous white supremacists being arrested for horrific acts of violence there. And these protests, we have not had incidents. We've had people yelling that some people said hateful things, and there's no place for hateful things. But no one's even suggested there's been violence by any of these protesters. They've just been doing their thing. So
the violence has come to them.
Yeah, exactly. And most of those people who yell those things were not students, right? Like, and an important point is about how diverse it has been too. I mean, they even did, Jewish students did a Seder at Columbia in the encampment. So it's a broad coalition, a solidarity movement, and that's also left out of the conversation. And to the point, Dean, about, you didn't see that sort of response. You didn't see this level of force used against January 6th. You didn't even know the neo-Nazi rallies, the Charlottesville. It was just like, okay, go ahead, go on, speak. And these kids who are peacefully demonstrating are being treated like this. And you're also, another point about the hypocrisy, the entire free speech, cancel culture people, and left to like, oh, I'm sure Bill Maher will have one of these students on. Yeah, right. That's sarcasm.
He won't, because he doesn't like their message, right?
He's probably going to have a Columbia professor, what's his name, Shai Davida, or whatever his name is. He's probably going to on, but nobody is standing up for these these young people's rights to speak and have their, fundamental constitutional rights protected, or I should say very few people, and nobody from that entire movement that claims to be, I've been canceled now. It's utter hypocrisy. It's so disgusting.
But you know what's going to be cute though?
What
is that? All of those kids that are experiencing that and all of the kids that are watching that around the country are all voters. And they're going to all, if someone is being a beacon or a Pied Piper in this moment, to start directing them and say, look at what the country that you're living in right now is trying to do to you and your rights. They've already taken away damn near half your voting rights. They've taken away your rights to your body. It's like, do you not see what's happening? And if you do see what's happening, then come November, don't be whiny-hiney. Don't be, I'm going to, I got to hold my nose and vote. Realize what you're going to be voting for if you allow this stuff to continue on. And that's going to be the message that they hopefully will grab.
I agree.
I'm just,
so let's take a break because there's something else they're taking away. It's TikTok. And that's the right and the left.
What?
So go post your video on TikTok. What? TikTok's gone. So let's take a break. We're going to come back and talk about Jerry Seinfeld's new movie, Courtney Cox, and TikTok being a year from now being banned. And maybe it works out, but we'll see. But let's take a break. We'll be right back with more of what just happened right after this. And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're continuing our conversation here. Carolina Hidalgo, Nida Khan, and Keith Price for what just happened. So President Biden signed, the Congress overwhelmingly, Democrats and Republicans joined together to force TikTok's parent company, ByteDance it's called, to sell their interest in this platform. And they have 12 months to divest of it. So this is divestiture that they like, that politicians like, not divesting of Netanyahu's policies, this stuff. And that they have 1 year. Now there's going to be lawsuits and stuff, but just so people know, there is 170 million Americans on TikTok with TikTok accounts. Do you guys, Carolina, do you have a TikTok account?
I actually don't. So whoever Carolina Hidalgo is out there, that's not me.
So you don't buy Nitha, do you have a TikTok account?
I actually don't. I know I feel so old. I actually don't, but I do look at it. You can still look at videos and it's very helpful. And I think that is why they're going after it, because so many.
We'll go back. I just want to see if you had an account.
Okay,
and Keith, do you have a TikTok account?
Yes, I do. Comedy Daddy 54.
Do you have are you active on it? Do you have a good number of
followers? I'm not super active, but I put up some of my comic sets. I put up some of, like my birthday wishes and all that kind of foolishness up there. But I'm not doing anything like super,
right.
Like I'm not cooking. I'm not making the world a better place. I'm just telling my jokes about how millennials can kind of get on an old man's nerves, that kind of, what I mean? That's where I'm at right now. So
fair enough. I have a robust following of 178 followers. I'm an influencer. Those 178. Look forward to my sporadic videos that I post maybe once a week. The videos I post, they are generally ones in the show, like a 2-minute video or audio clip. I just posted up there and
Mhm.
it'll get like 8 views. I'm like, this was just, it took more time. I could
To make the damn video, right?
8 views. I'm like, this is just embarrassing on every level. But there's some young people. I had V Sphere on last week, 3 million plus followers. And that there are people like V who make their career, their living. They've monetized it and do a daily show on TikTok. So it's going to affect them. So Nitha, you were talking about like what could be driving this. What do you think this is? Is there an intersection between this and the crackdown on free speech about pro-Palestinian?
Absolutely, 1000%. You know, that's what I was saying. Like young people, they get, not only are they getting videos on the ground from people in
Mhm.
Gaza, but they're also sharing information and sharing knowledge, which is threatening to a lot of people, right? So
Yep.
it's quote unquote changing the narrative and giving another perspective. And there was even, I remember a couple months back, I want to say like 5 months back, there was leaked audio of an individual who I will not name, but with the ADL, we all know who we're talking about. And he was saying something to the effect of how, you know, TikTok is so dangerous and it's brainwashing kids and this and that. So it's very clear that a lot of people are threatened by the power of something like TikTok. And you're going to see, you know, them going after other forms of social media as well, too. I totally predict this. You know, and it's really interesting and ironic that we talk about Trump and the dangers of Trump and being a dictator and the silencing of voices and the silencing of, you know, people being able to express themselves and have their constitutional rights protected. But you're seeing a lot of that happening right now in real time, even when
Mhm.
Trump is not in office. You're seeing,
Mhm.
I mean, even with the crackdown on the protests, that's a level of that as well, too. So you're seeing, you know, fascism in play even now, different aspects of it. And of course, when Trump gets in, and I say when because I'm very worried, and I really do think he very well may win again because Biden has
Possible.
ignored his base and ignored young people and ignored 80% of Democrats that want a ceasefire. So it's very scary to think about, you know, everything from connecting everything we talked about with the Supreme Court and him being able to get away with whatever he wants to and being a dictator. Just imagine the next level that things could go to. And it's really, really frightening.
Exactly, because now he knows what he can get away with. And so we are I saw your face perk up there, dude. It's the truth. He now knows exactly what he can get away with. And if he is not stopped, you know, we've allowed, you know, these senators that let him slide through those 2 impeachment hearings. We have like all of those people need to sit back and recognize what they have unleashed on the world, and they need to start, you know, their complicitness in this whole shebang of what we're enduring now is because of them. And the mere fact that for some reason we all as a country fell asleep at the wheel in 2016, not recognizing what kind of destruction this human being was about to cause to this nation. And it's like, I mean, if you are a narcissist and you're like him, it's like you must be really like a pig in shit right now because you have the entire country, the entire world worrying about what's going to happen and what's your fate. We're all focused on that because it all affects every one of us in some weird, crazy ass way. And so, you know, in the end, you know, I'm just hoping the cheeseburgers and that Diet Coke diet will get him before anything else because nothing else seems to be working.
Well, this court won't hold him back. This whole idea too that we have a 22nd Amendment which says you can't serve a 3rd term. I have zero confidence the Supreme Court would uphold that against Donald Trump. You know, getting back to the court, they'll find something. Well, you know, they didn't say how you have to be executing and Congress didn't pass a law, whatever. If they want to save him, they will. If they've had enough done with him, you know, that's the end of it. But it's interesting too. If under Biden, you could have this crackdown on students around the country. Under Trump, what you could do, because Trump will be like, he doesn't, because remember, he would threaten the idea of Black Lives Matter, shutting them down, and people were like, outraged, how dare you? Now people are like, well, okay, I guess it's okay. And I'm not blaming Biden for it. I'm just saying it's in the time of Biden. That's all. It's not happening. It's Republicans. It's also Democratic. Well, look, in New York, the NYPD went in. Now the NYPD left Columbia, and they're negotiating. And I'm hopeful they're going to reach some kind of negotiated settlement there where everybody's happy. But it is concerning. I mean, Carolina, if Trump were to get in, how do you think our civil liberties would be impacted by that?
I mean, that's something I I don't even want to think about. Why
it's too frightening.
Dean?
It's
why
really
is this
frightening.
Question? Because this is the crazy thing. About 5 years ago, I have friends from abroad, of course, I'm from abroad. I'm from Colombia. But I have friends who I remember 5 years ago being like, hey, if you need to, you can always come here. And then like trying to help plot my escape from America. And I'm like,
Right.
guys, I know we're under Trump and everything. This is horrible, but it's not like that. And now here we are, and Trump is not even president. And I'm thinking like, well, man, you were not wrong,
Mhm.
you know, in coming out to me in this. So it is
No.
a very frightening thing, but it's also a thing that I really right now don't want to spend too much time on it. I mean, at least being frightened for it as much as
Mhm.
it is important to tell people, especially young people, to vote, because that is the number one thing that is the barrier that will keep us from like losing all democracy, because they will fuck up. I mean, like Texas is no longer a free state. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not
Yeah.
for women, for Latinos, for people of color. And so this can go up further and further, and it could get worse. And the fact that it's the United States of America, that means we should all have our rights, and it
Mhm.
shouldn't just be like depending on the place. Because
Sure.
that's insane. Like I come from a place where our ancestors that dealt with
Mhm.
dictatorships, right? Throughout and so it's like kind of like the same thing coming along in a different way, right? History repeating itself in a very, very different way. So yeah, Dean, the question is, don't ask me that question.
Don't ask
Let's
that
hope
question.
it doesn't happen. Let's hope it
No.
doesn't happen.
And you're
Yeah.
also right,
I
though,
think
that we have free states and states that are not free. It's very similar to in the way before the Civil War, where
Yeah.
it was different. Obviously, slavery was a unique form of evil, but the fact that women have lost rights in certain states, and it really lines up on the states where there was the Confederacy. It's kind of odd, isn't it? But the idea
Yeah.
and Jim Crow, where Jim Crow was the same, they have no problem, the same mentality through generations of taking away a fundamental right from someone and forcing a woman to carry a fetus to term against her will. They have no
Or a
problem with that.
girl. Yeah.
Or a girl, like, you know, that they have no problem with that. And I don't think it's a coincidence. It is the former Jim Crow states almost exclusively that are doing this right now. And the free states remain the free states. It's remarkable to see this play out. That's what
And
you're gonna say?
even with the response, you know, like the police response and to the protesters, like in Texas, Greg Abbott, and then you have
Ugh.
in Georgia, you know, what's his name?
Brian
Kemp.
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 Exactly. So yes, they are Republicans. So we expect this, right? Like this is what we're fearful of. But I do blame Biden in the sense that he has not spoken out about this, right? Except to denounce, like they put out a White House statement denouncing the protesters and trying to lump them in with the anti-Semitic, you know,
Mhm.
came in and trying to tarnish the overall image of these peaceful protesters. But he has not spoken out in support of them, in support of these young people to speak out, to demand something different. And it's such a crazy dynamic that you have like this nationwide, you know, awakening and people demanding change and an end to the genocide. And at the same time, we're sending $26 billion to Israel. I mean, it is
In
crazy.
military aid.
It's like
Yeah.
exactly this dynamic in this moment. It's
With
crazy.
no conditions. With no, that's the weird, you know, like you can say,
Mhm.
okay, Iron Dome was defensive. I get it. If you're going to give any offensive weapons, there has to be conditions so they're not used on civilians in Gaza like they've done already, and none. So, and but that's look, that's overwhelmingly Congress, and Biden signs it. So let's shift gears for a second here. Have any of you ever been in couples therapy? Anyone ever go to couples therapy?
Yeah. I've done it before a couple times.
Was it helpful?
It is. It can be. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I would
because
say
I'm getting
yes.
at this
I'm
Courtney
all
Cox.
about therapy.
Sure. No, I'm Courtney Cox. Everyone knows her from Friends. She, a longtime partner, Johnny McDade, who's a singer from the group Snow Patrol, that she was telling a story about how they've got back together now. They went to couples therapy, and she said, quote, he just broke up within the first minute. And I was like, what? So they begin couples therapy, and her boyfriend at the time used it to go like, it's over. And I'm like, if that happened in my relationship, I'm like, couldn't you have told us before we spent the deductible? Couldn't you tell us like in the lobby before you go there? Like, and she said in retrospect, it was they separated for a while and they made them both stronger, and now they're together and they're really happy. I went to couples therapy a long time ago with another, not Hend, but I was married once, and we went there, and it was not helpful. Like, it really didn't help. And I think that, not that we didn't want to work at it, but I think that you have to really want things to work out if you're going to go to it. Like, if you're just doing it to make someone feel better, it's not going to work out. So that's what happened. Like, okay, that makes you happy, we'll go. That was sort of the conversations we had. And people were just telling us to go, but it wasn't working out. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And so it's kind of interesting. Nitha, I mean, isn't this kind of thing you go to couples therapy and the opening line from your partners, I want out. I'm like, you're not even negotiating well. That's like the last line. You have to say like, okay, I need more free time. I need my me time, whatever it is. Like, and he just broke up. And I was like, what?
That's terrible. Or why, like you said, why couldn't you have done that earlier before that point? I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's painful. I feel so bad.
It's not cheap.
But
well, that's Hollywood money, honey. You can waste Hollywood money like that. That's what you do.
So, but that's just crazy to me. And you said they're back together now?
Now they're back together. Courtney Cox was interviewed saying, it was an interview she did this week. I take everything from the news of this week, but she was saying how, reflecting on that years ago, I mean, and I don't know what the next line is. If you're in therapy and the person opens with, I want out. Like, okay.
Where do you go from there?
Like, okay. Can we talk about boundaries? No, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm just telling you, I'm leaving. And that's a deal breaker. That's starting at 10. You got to start like at 2 and build to that in the meeting. I mean, Carolina,
you should have never taken him back.
Right, you shouldn't have. Carolina,
I would have never.
You said therapy is very helpful. And the only therapy I went to was couples for a few sessions. It didn't work out. It worked out in the big picture. I'm much happier with Hen than I was with the person I was with for many years. And so it really did work out. But you're saying therapy can work, but I guess you have to be constructive when you go in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do therapy. My husband does therapy, and then we've done therapy, the counseling a couple of times, and it worked. You know, it works until it doesn't. Until you're just like, okay, I'm good, and then we just keep going on with our lives or whatever. I love therapy. I'll talk about therapy all day. With this Courtney Cox thing, I had no idea that she was with the guy from Snow Patrol until this. So I good for her, and I'm glad that she's happy. I didn't know. I thought she was. I haven't like looked into her until since last time she was married to David from Scream.
Oh yeah,
David Arquette.
David Arquette from Scream. Yeah. So like, hey, good for her for being. He looks good. So
and with a wrong Keith, have you ever gone to therapy?
I've gone to therapy for me, but I've never had a couples therapy situation.
Did you ever have a therapist go, I quit in the first minute? Like, I've had enough. It's like, I'm out of here.
There's no help for you.
There's no, I'll refund your deductible. Please leave. Now that's
get out. Your stories are too harrowing. I can't. No, I was very, very fortunate that I had a couple of good therapists along the way. Not necessarily the biggest proponent of it now, only because I can't afford it, but then, but at the same time, it is, it's a bit on the deductible tip, but at the same time, I'm all for it for people if it's certainly if it's going to help put them in another place to do better for themselves. And absolutely, I'm all about it. And even in those moments when I went to therapy, it's still, I still use some of the tools today. It's not like you let them all go, but as far as right now, I don't see it being able to really change anything for me that I can't change for myself.
Like it worked out for Courtney Cox. So if anyone's out there thinking like, I'll go to therapy, break up in the first moment, and a few years later, you might get back. All right, before we run out of time, just want to give people a chance to plug where people can follow you, find your work. Carolina, where can people find your podcast? And are there more than one name? I just gave you the one thing. You might be doing 10 podcasts for all I know at this point.
No, right now it's No Dogs in Space. Check it out on anywhere you get podcasts. It's on Last Podcast Network. And you can find me on Instagram on Carolina Danger Hidalgo. I'm not on any of the other social media because that's too much work. Just go to the one place and then that's where you'll find me.
Nida Khan, what about you, my friend?
Oh, alas, I am still on Twitter and I still call it Twitter. So it's Nida Khan, NY, NIDA KHAN NY. And there you can find me tweeting all kinds of shenanigans and causing trouble.
Excellent. And Mr. Price, what about you, brother?
Yes. Well, I too still am on the Twitter at Comedy Daddy, but you can come to KeithPriceComic.com to find everything else about me.
Thank you, guys. You were great. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Have a great weekend. We'll take a break and be back with more of the show.